If you ever find yourself walking alone through the deep pine forests of rural Russia or eastern Poland, and you smell wood smoke where no village should be, do not follow it. My name is Oswald. I have been stuck here for over 140 years. In a library with no walls I have ever found, no ceiling I have ever seen, and shelves that stretch into a darkness that does not end. I am condemned to read every book in this place before I may rest. Each one breathes a horror into the stones around me. There are so many books here. I have not yet seen even a fraction of them. I will be here a very long time. Tonight's subject is Baba Yaga. The trail had seemed fine 2 hours ago. Lena had her phone, her pack, her detailed paper map of the Pskov Wilderness Reserve she had printed from a hiking forum. She had done everything right. But the path had narrowed, then vanished, and now there were only trees. And trees. And more trees, close together, blocking the last grey light of the October sky. Then she smelled wood smoke. She told herself it was a ranger station. She told herself it was a campfire. She told herself these things very quickly, the way people do when they need the lie to hold just long enough. The hut appeared between the pines like it had always been there and had simply been waiting for her to look in the right direction. It was small, warped timber, black with age, and it stood oddly. The structure tilted in a way that was not quite the result of age or rot. It tilted as though it had shifted its weight to look at her. She stepped closer. The smell was wood smoke, yes, but underneath it, something else, something organic and wrong, like meat left in dark water. She called out. Nothing. She called again. Nothing. On the third call, the door opened. What she saw inside was not a room. It was a single chair beside a single fire, and in the chair was a shape that was mostly shadow and mostly not. Something long, something patient, something that had been waiting for someone exactly like her. She did not scream. That was the strange thing the search team noted later when they found the pack. Just the pack and her boots, placed neatly side by side outside the door, as though she had been asked to remove them before entering. They found nothing else. The hut itself was gone. Only a ring of flattened earth remained, roughly circular, as if something large had stood there and then simply walked away. But to understand what happened to Lena, you must first know what this thing was, what it became, and what it costs. Once upon a time, in the deep forests east of Novgorod, in the year 1241, there lived a woman who knew things. This is not a gentle beginning. Do not mistake it for one. Her name, as it was recorded in the account of a monastery that no longer stands, was something close to Yadviga. The monks called her the Bone Woman, not because she was thin, though she was, ferociously so, but because she had a gift. She could speak to what remained of the dead, the bone and the ash, the tooth and the remnant. She could ask what lingered, and sometimes something answered. She lived alone. This was the safest arrangement for everyone. The village nearby depended on her at the edges of their lives. When a child would not be born easily, they sent for Yadviga. When the cattle sickened, they sent for Yadviga. When the winter lasted too long and the grain was nearly gone, they always sent for Yadviga. And she came, always, because she understood the contract of her existence. She was feared, she was useful. Those two things kept her alive, for a time. The winter of 1241 was the worst in living memory. The Mongol advance had burned what the cold had not, and the people of that forest community were desperate in a way that desperation itself cannot quite describe. Hungry people do not think clearly. Hungry, terrified people do not think at all. They decided Yadviga was the cause. It happened the way these things always happen, quietly at first. A rumor, a child's fever that did not break, an accusation spoken once in private, then twice in a larger gathering, then shouted in the square. By the time the accusation had a shape, it was already a verdict. They came for her on a Tuesday. She was at her fire, reading the ash the way she always did, and she heard them before she saw them. She had always been able to hear things before they arrived. They dragged her from her home. She did not resist. This surprised them and frightened them, and then made them angrier. They bound her hands with rope, and they took her to the edge of the forest, that specific boundary between the village world and the wild dark beyond, and they told her she was banished, that she was nothing, that she had taken from them and given nothing back. She looked at them for a long moment. Then she said very quietly, "I have given you everything." They threw her into the trees. She walked for 3 days. No food, no water. She did not find herself. The cold was enormous. She fell twice. She got up twice. On the 3rd day, she stopped walking because there was nowhere left to walk. She had reached a place in the forest that felt like a center, though it had no geography that made that possible. A clearing, old trees in a ring around it. And she understood, in the way that people understand things when the ordinary world has entirely abandoned them, that something had been here waiting. She made a bargain. Not with God, with the thing that lived in the oldest places, in the space between roots, in the dark below the dark. She did not die, or rather, she did die, but it did not stop her. What rose from that clearing was still Yadviga, in the way that a river is still a river after a dam breaks. The shape was preserved, the intelligence was preserved, but the mercy was gone, and the hunger had become something vast and architectural. The stories began within a generation. The hut that moves, the hut that stands on legs like an enormous chicken, turning always away from the direction you approach, so that only the door faces the forest. The woman inside who is ancient beyond category, who has teeth of iron and a nose so long it touches the ceiling when she sleeps, who flies in a mortar and sweeps her tracks with a broom because she does not wish to be found, only to find. She takes the lost. That is her method. Not the merely confused or the briefly turned around, but the truly lost. Those who have wandered far enough from the world of right things that they have stumbled into her jurisdiction. She tests them. This is the part the old stories preserve most carefully, because the old stories were instructions as much as they were entertainment. She gives impossible tasks. She asks unanswerable riddles. She feeds them before she evaluates them, because the law of hospitality is older than she is, and she observes it even now, even twisted as it has become. Those who are clever, who are brave, who are honest in their fear, she sometimes releases. She gives them gifts, a glowing skull, a horse, knowledge they did not have before. But those who are weak of spirit or careless or who lie to her face, she eats them. This is not a metaphor. She eats them, and she adds their bones to the fence around her hut. And she is no fuller than she was before, because her hunger is not for meat. Her hunger is for the thing the village took from her when they threw her into the trees. The thing she gave them over and and they threw away. She is still hungry. She has been hungry for 800 years. And sometimes, when the October light fails early, and the pines crowd close enough that the sky disappears, and a hiker alone in the Pskov wilderness smells wood smoke where no smoke should be, Yadviga remembers what it felt like to be found useful, to be needed, to have someone arrive at her door seeking help. She puts more wood on the fire. She makes the hut face outward, inviting. She waits, because somewhere out in the darkening trees a woman named Lena has just smelled the smoke and told herself the lie about the ranger station and begun to walk toward the warmth. And the hut tilts, just slightly, just enough, as though shifting its weight to look at her. Close the book, set it down carefully. Every version of Baba Yaga carries the same wound at its center. A woman who gave everything, taken to the edge of the known world and thrown into the dark. What returned from that dark was shaped by exactly what was done to her. We created her. This is what the old stories know that we prefer to forget. The monsters at the forest's edge are not strangers. They are neighbors we abandoned. They are debts we convinced ourselves we did not owe. I have read enough of these books to understand the pattern. I am still reading. There are so many more, and I have nowhere else to be.